So I want to know, how do you therapy sex? Like, how does it actually happen? Someone comes in and says, I want to have more sex. What do you do?
They generally don't want to have more sex. They want to have
better sex.
They want to have better sex.
Yeah.
So I'll start by asking them, I'll ask them what it was that brought them here in the first place. What was the catalyst? And then usually I sort of work backwards from there. So it might be on a physical level. They might say, women particularly, I'll pitch it at women because that's the audience we've got. They will say, I can't have orgasms, for example. Or they'll say, I've lost my libido. Or they'll say, I was in a relationship for 15 years with a man and I've just repartnered with a woman and I want to know about how that works in a physical sense. So those are the kinds of things that clients will present with. And so if they need a mechanics lesson, I will give them that. I run seminars on the mechanics, literally the anatomical presentation of, you know, what I call broadly the female genitalia. I'm aware of the trans implications there, and I'm talking about cunts, basically. So I teach people how to navigate their way around a cunt. And a physical one, not a metaphorical one.
Not Tony
Although I've
Abbott.
done my time with them as well. So.
Oh, no!
Which, interestingly, there's an assumption that if one is a cunt owner, that one knows how to navigate their way around the cunt.
But
that's
it's not necessarily true, is
it's
it?
Absolutely not true. So again, it's about that permission, because cunt owners often think, well, I should know because I have one. And it's like, well, if you didn't go out of your way to learn, is that information just going to be magically downloaded into your head? No, it's not. Especially if you've had a conservative upbringing, if you've never masturbated, if you have taboos around sex, and you rarely get your hand down there and have a bit of a go, of course you're not going to know how it feels. So this is where it comes back to permission.
I just had a light bulb moment. That's so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, you teach it how to, people get taught how to swim, right?
Absolutely.
You should be taught how to use your cunt. Would you agree, Jackie?
I'm all for every woman masturbating and having a vibrator and using a mirror and actually knowing what their cunt looks like. I think that really basic stuff that Annie Sprinkle came out so many years ago and talked about, did a public cervix announcement, and you looked up her cunt. And I was like, wow, like you can do that? And I think that often I find that female partners aren't really comfortable with being looked at. And I think that voyeurism aspect is really, really important. You need to find yourself hot. You can do that in front of a mirror. And if you can find yourself hot, then you can put out something that somebody else could find hot.
Yeah, that's what you're saying as well,
I mean,
Cindy.
if you don't know what you like, it's going to be really, really difficult to be able to explain to somebody what you want them to do. Whether it's a new partnership or a partnership of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if you have just been doing business as usual and you've never thought outside the square and you don't know what else is available, of course you're not going to know. And again, this is some of the shame that people have, is that they feel like, oh, I'm 40, I should know more. If you've never done any research, if you've never done any self-inquiry, how are you going to know more? You're not going to. We live in a culture that tells us that sex is not okay. We live in a culture that tells us that sex is for reproduction. If I put it to you, the last time you had sex, was it to have a baby? I rest my case. People do not have sex for having babies. This is bullshit. Sexuality has evolved. That is not why we have sex. We have sex for a bunch of reasons. Sometimes revenge is one of them. But having babies is really low down on the list.
But is there anything that specifically characterizes women in being able to express their sexuality, or something that holds us back?
I think that women at Hellfire look really good at expressing their sexuality, and I think one of the ways that they do that is by dressing up. And I think sometimes in your own person, in your own head, it's very difficult to be a very sexual being. You feel a bit silly. So I'd argue that anyone can put on a character, and everybody should have a range of characters that they actually find sexy. So go out as Angelina Jolie, fuck as Angelina Jolie in Tomb Raider. You know, to me, those kind of things. Yeah. Those
Maleficent.
Kind of,
I want to be like Maleficent with the horns.
Exactly. Well, at Hellfire, that's how we approach sex. So rather than people coming to me with a problem, they'd come to me going, I'm afraid of coming to Hellfire, and I'd say to them, what character turns you on? Who do you find hot? Be her. And then I would get them to talk to other people in that character, and that's really easy. So if you're inexperienced, rather than going, I'm 40, I feel stupid because I'm inexperienced and I can't say that, you be a young-ish character and you act it out and you let other people show you and teach you. You show to people your sexual self is hesitant, and then hopefully you meet somebody whose sexual self is quite dominant, and then you make happy love.
Great. Cindy,
Yeah.
what's your experience on that level?
The biggest thing that I see in my female clients is that they find it hard to distinguish between sex and love.
Has anybody ever heard that? Yeah?
That the implication for women, and again, my personal belief is this is conditioning, and like I said, it's my personal belief. I don't have any science to back it up. But it's based on my years of working with women, of being a woman, that we are conditioned from a very, very young age that, you know, even around the concept of virginity, that we have to save it for the right person, and if we give it away, something bad will happen to us. And there, again, this is coming back to this idea of being moral guardians of society, that it's our responsibility to take care of this precious gift, and that if we give it away, we're somehow damaged or broken. And even the most intelligent, feminist, forward-thinking women still struggle with this, the idea that I have to give it to the right person. And I'm not suggesting that we should be having sex willy-nilly either. Please don't interpret that as what I'm saying.
I am.
If you want to.
And I'm also not against willy-nilly sex. But what I am saying is that sex actually is really fucking important. It's really fucking important. And we should actually value it more than we do by doing it more than we do.
I think, though, we also slut shame. And I think that we all need to drop that word from our vocabulary and stop looking at women who are sexually active and shaming them for it. And I think then we would all feel more permission to have more sex.
Definitely. Do you think that, I mean, people, you know, lesbians, oftentimes they say, you know, that you have a date and then you move in, you know, that you have one date.
They leave clothes on the first date.
You know what I mean? Like the toothbrush thing, it's like within 2 or 3 days. And I guess, is that a little bit about what you're saying about falling in love and sex?
Well, we can get confused because we get conditioned to believe that love and sex are the same thing. And they certainly can go together, and when they do go together, they're fantastic. But the reason why, after a period of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, in different relationships will be different. But eventually, in a long-term relationship, the sex starts to dwindle somehow. And that is not an indication that the relationship is dying. It just means that it's shifting. And that doesn't also mean that you don't love your partner anymore. It might mean that, but in a lot of cases, it doesn't mean that. In a lot of cases, it means that the love you're experiencing and the eroticism that you once experienced have shifted places, and they are not synonymous. They are different. And this is where it's important to work out what your erotic personality is. And that might also change over time. And your erotic personality might be vastly different from your day-to-day personality. It might be quite similar as well. But who we are sexually and who we are at work and with our friends and family and that kind of thing, they don't have to necessarily be the same. And it doesn't mean that we're being incongruent if in the sack we're one thing and at work we're another thing. It's all part of the texture of human sexuality, which is just a never-ending bucket of amazingness, I think.
Jackie, you wanted to kind of jump in there.
I kind of think that we have this view, particularly that lesbian relationships are different. I've had sex with men and women, and I don't see that bed death doesn't happen in heterosexual relationships.
Yeah, see, I agree. But
I don't want to take that on as a community and go, lesbians just get to this point and it's inevitable, because it's not inevitable.
I think it's all relationships.
And straight relationships aren't easy either. So, you get there anyway. But I also think that we have this view that one person is going to be the person and they're going to provide all of our needs. And I think that we discount some of the ways that we get intimacy. And I mean, my female friends provide me with so much of the intimacy and continuity and security that I need. I don't actually need that from every person I'm fucking. And I think that when you start to separate these things out and see that it's okay to have multiple relationships and draw different things from them, and you start, as you get older particularly, to unpack that need for monogamy and that need to just expect one partner to do everything, you start to have a much healthier set of expectations with the people that you meet and the sex that you have.